Hi everybody, Jo here again. You know what that means. Grab yourself a brew, cheeky biscuit, or is it evening? Is it an Ovaltine or a hot chocolate or a glass of wine? Do you know what? Whatever you fancy, grab yourself that drink and let's have a little catch up. How are you feeling? How are things going? Is it one of those weeks? I must admit I'm having one of those weeks. But you know what? We're going to spend a bit of time together. And let's just enjoy ourselves. Now today I thought we'd create this design, and the reason I thought I'd do this is recently I've done quite a few almost floral designs, and I've just done a workshop with my workshop ladies, and we've focused on creating cards for men because sometimes they can be a bit tricky, as it were. But what I like is when I can find designs that are great for men, for ladies and for couples, because often we forget, you know, when we've got to send a card to a couple. But also I like to always look for things that will cover all eventualities. So obviously this, it's quite funny actually, if you can hear a noise in the background, my neighbours are having a new drive. So there's quite a lot of activity going on outside. So if you hear any beeping, it's not me, it's not you, you're fine, it's just the workman. So as I was saying, this sort of design for me is wonderful because it could be somebody starting a new job. Now I know a lot of people are going back to the office after lockdown. Now again, this will be perfect for that. And the stamp I'm going to use is this lovely stamp set here, and I must admit I've used this a lot. It's by Pasha, it's Aall Create, and it's number 325, and it's called Time Up. But I must admit this, the grandfather clock, I have already done a YouTube on this, and if I remember, hopefully I will, I'll put it as a link in the comments to that one, because again, that beautiful, beautiful stamp. And this is the one we're using today, the Typewriter. And so many things you could do with this. You could literally just stamp it out. This is the whole stamp look. You could stamp it out just as it is. And do you know what? You'd have a beautiful design. But I just thought we'd mix it up a little, and we're going to do a little bit of stenciling in the background because we've got a lovely new star stencil come out with Aall Create. And what I like about this, I was thinking that stars are bright ideas. And again, if somebody was going back to work, it could be a bright idea. If it was for somebody who's done well with exams, again, you could use it as a congratulations. You know, you're a star. Again, you can put your own twist on it once you start thinking. And I thought we'd do this, which is a fun technique of just putting a paper scroll in the typewriter. And I'm only going to be using 2 colours of my oxide ink. So when you're ready, we'll get started. Now, I'm just going to have a sip of my water because my voice has been a bit croaky today. And I want it to behave just for 10 minutes while we have a catch up. Now, I'm doing this on a DL or a slimline card. Now, the piece of card I'm using, and I'm just using a stamping card here. This is actually one from Clarity Stamps. It's their stencil card. And it measures 9 by 20 centimetres, but I know you like it in inches, some of you. So it's 3.5 inches wide by just a smidge under 8. So it's sort of 7 and 9/10 maybe. So it, as I say, just a smidge under 8. I mean, if you cut it at 9 by 8 and then have a look and just take a little bit off the top. And all we're going to do is stamp our design on there to start off with. Now, the stamp I've put on an Aall Create block already. Well, let's be professional. Let's get rid of that and have a clean piece of copy of paper. I was forgetting where I was, mind you. I'm with friends, aren't I? So we can have a catch up. What I like about this size piece of card is I get 3 of these out of an A4 sheet. Again, you know, I like good value for money. Now again, I've got my stamping mat, my copy of paper, and I'm just going to use the black VersaFine Clair. I'm not doing anything difficult today. I just thought I'd come in with a nice relaxing little play. You know, when you want those days, you know, sometimes we don't want anything too taxing. I mean, it's lovely to do a project. You know, when you're in that mood and you want to do a project and you want to add lots of bits, but sometimes we just want something just a bit simpler to just almost create. So let's, and again, you know me, I like to do it this way. I just find it easier. And we'll pop it sort of in the middle. Often I go off to the side, don't I? But with this one, I'm thinking, let's just focus on the middle. And obviously, as always, you're just going to let the ink soak into the card. Now, do remember, with your Aall Create blocks, they are flexible. So you can just give them a bit of a flex and hold the stamp down where you want that detail. There we go. And I have to say, I think this is absolutely beautiful. I mean, like I say, you could leave it like that. Now I want to just stamp the actual typewriter again. So I'm going to ink that up because we're going to decoupage that. So again, we'll just ink that up, give that a good... Now this would look lovely in brown ink as well. I have done it in a lovely brown. Is it Acorn? Anyway, a VersaFine Claire, the brown. But today I thought I'd just go with black. But like I say, you can mix and match. You can... So I've stamped that again, and I've got this lovely word here. Now, you know, at the minute, I've got this obsession with little words in boxes and numbers in boxes. Now, when I cut my toppers, there's a little strip of card like this. Just noticed I've got ink on my hands. And what I do is, you know me, I keep every little bit of card. Well, these strips are absolutely perfect, because what I want to do is just stamp some of these. So there's the word there, options. So if I get my little strip, look, my still in camera, and then I can just, and I'm just going to take the card to the stamp this time. Obviously I've done this before, so you know what I'm going to do here. There we go. And what I do is I pick up, so I like the word creative there. So we'll pick that up as well. And again, this is just a little strip that you would have thrown out. And there's the word box there. And we'll just pick that up. And at home, what I tend to do, to be honest, is fill the whole of my piece. And again, these numbers, I could put some numbers on there. And I have these little words and things all round my workspace. And what I do is I just add them to different cards that I'm doing. As I say, it has become quite an obsession of mine. Now I'm just going to blot that because we're going to do our stenciling next, and I want to make sure that the ink is dry. In fact, I might just whiz the heat tool over it, if you don't mind. Like I say, I have got the quieter one now. Probably a good time for you to have a sip of your brew. Is it a nice tea, coffee? What we into? Is it latte? Or maybe a nice tea, a chamomile, or... Like I say, depending what time of the day it is. Right, I'm just going to grab myself a tissue and just wipe my hands, because again, don't want any marks on my hands. And all I'm going to do now is add some stenciling. And I did mention this, I'll just get it for you. I'm trying to be good, I'm trying to learn and tell you what I'm using instead of just using it. So I do listen to your comments, so thank you very much for all your comments, and I do try and take them on board. So this is Stencil 121, again from Aall Create, and it's called Smitten with Stars, and it's by Abs. And beautiful, big A4, But what it is this is perfect. As I say, I think stars, you've got celebrations, you've got You're a Star. You know, if you've got teenagers cards and you need to make one and you're not sure what they're into, again, you could do this in bright colours. Maybe if it's a boy, do you know his favourite football team, do it in those colours and just put You're a Star. Again, great for qualifications or a congratulations card. But then you've got Stars Christmas. You know, so many options. Now, I'm actually going to put mine across. You know, I have this thing about diagonals on a card. So I'm just going to put this across here. Now, I don't want it to be too strong. So I'm going to start with an ink pad, Pumice Stone. And this is a very light sort of grey colour. But I'm going to bring my vintage photo in just in case the Pumice Stone is too light. Now, I'm just going to use a stencil brush for this. And I'm just going to literally flick some colour. Now, you could tape this down, but you know me, I just want to actually hold it in place. I don't want the whole thing covered in stars, just this little bit of the background. Now, again, I often get asked, why do I do my stamping first? I know most people make the background first, but I just find for me, if I want to make my stenciling more pronounced, so I'm putting the grey over the whole thing. And if I lift it up, look, I can see that, and it's starting to show lovely. But I actually want them slightly darker around my, even though I'm decoupaging it, I want it darker. So say I wasn't going to decoupage and I don't want to go over the typewriter, I can see where it is. So I can actually avoid the typewriter. Now I'm going to come in with the brown, and a little tip, I'm going to hold my stencil brush like this. And I'm just going to brush the brown in a bit of an upwards. And what this I'm hoping, and again, just at the bottom here, in this corner, and then a bit in this top corner, and I'm hoping that's going to give me, oh, that's nice. So it's almost giving me a darker edge. It's almost giving me shading on my stenciling without me having to do any more work. So if I take that off, look, and I'll bring this a little bit closer to show you. So can you see, they're very subtle, these stars, but if I just use my scissors to put, I know my pokey tool's better. My pokey tool's much better. Look, can you see here? We've got that shading without me having to add extra. And that's just because I was pulling. So I was squeezing my stencil brush and actually pulling it this way. So catching this edge. And that's where I get that lovely. So for me, that's a lovely background for a man's cards. I don't want it too in your face. So I'm really happy with that. So I can put that away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a black line round the edge to frame it. And I'm going to do something we've done before, and that's just use the Sharpie pen and ruler. Now, again, you could map this onto black card if you want. For me, this is just easier, quicker, dare I say, less expensive because you don't have to buy the card, but also it's lighter if you were thinking of posting. But the other thing for me is I can make my topper larger because I don't need to allow for that extra layer of card. So that's another reason that I like to do it. And that just frames. But do remember to wipe. Some clever people can actually run the Sharpie down the card. I can't. I am just not one of them clever people. Mind you, I do tell you this, I'm always honest with you. We all know I am not one of them clever people at all. So I have to use a ruler. But yes, some people just literally do. Hold it, run it down, job done. Now on our typewriter that we're going to decoupage, I'm just literally going to add a little bit of colour with the vintage photo. You know me, I like to do this cheats bit of colour in, a bit of water, and all I'm going to do is very quickly colour it in and cut it out. Now, I'd be glad to know I have got one that I have already coloured in and cut out. But what you find is this is a bit of a cheats way and very quick. But as we've seen before, I can come on top of this and I can add pencils to add shade and to add highlight. But for the basis, that is all that I need. But what I'm also going to do, and I just want a little bit more ink. While I've got the ink, so all these little pieces, look, where I've got my box words, I'm going to paint those. Where's my card? Here it is. Now it's upside down, but that just... And these I'm going to put on as my highlights. Like I say, honestly, my desk has got little boxes with words in, numbers in, all over. Look, I've literally got them everywhere. But they just make great embellishments. And again, like I've done before, remember you can put your glossy accents on top of it. You can put your clear embossing powder. I'm just going to pop the lids on my ink pads because I'm going to flick some water. Before I flick the water, it'd be a good time for me to just put a bit of shadow in. So I've had these clear colour pens for a long time, clean colour. Sorry, I keep calling them clear colour, but it's clean, zig clean colour. And I found these are a lovely quick way for me to add. And sometimes I like, you know, I normally use charcoal. Well, sometimes I think it's good just to use a different product. It almost just stops you getting bored. Obviously not that I would, but I'm just thinking, let's add a little bit of shade there. Right, and now I can flick my water. So with this ink that I've got on my mat, to save wasting it, let's just flick some nice vintage splats. And put that to one side. Let's give it a wipe. Now, are you with me so far? The next thing we need to do is make ourselves our scroll. So this scroll here. Now again, depending, you could use paper if you want. But I save, I've got to be honest, I have a basket next to my desk and I save all my offcuts. I mean, when I tell you I save them, I really do, but I do use them. Now it just happens that when I got these, and I looked, that, there we go, is very nearly that size. Well, I can get away with that. So to make my scroll, and again, depends how long you want to make it. What you've got to think of is posting. Now, this card for me, I would either put in a box or it would be one that I would hand give. A little tip, if you've got a card like this, and obviously that would squash if we put it in the post, and I'm hand gifting a card like this, I use tissue paper. I mean, you could make a box, but for me, it's a lot easier to just pop tissue paper. And the other thing is, you could stamp your tissue paper up. Again, be careful, make sure you've got something underneath because your stamping will go through. And I would always use a permanent ink, but you could stamp up tissue paper instead of using an envelope. So what we'll do to take, you could again have the card white, but I want to take the whiteness off. So I'm just going to use that direct to paper technique, DTP, and let's just swipe some colour. And again, I'm going to go with the pumice stone because I don't want it too deep. Now, what I could do if I wanted is bring in a little bit of the vintage photo just in the edge, just to make it look when it's... I didn't do that on the original, I just had that thought now. Mind you, I'm like that. Do you ever make two things the same? Because, do you know, I don't. I start off with an idea. The number of times I do these little video things and I change my mind as I'm going along, I add bits. And sometimes I think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And other times I think, oh, why didn't I do that originally? But that's the part of being creative, isn't it? I think that's what we like. Well, that's the bit I enjoy. And I have to say thank you all. The response on the last week when we caught up and we did the reflection, the Lavinia reflection, and we did the bit where I had to go up making a panel for a sentiment. Thank you so much, with all the messages saying that you've seen it used in the last couple of days on other blogs and YouTubes. It's so lovely that you notice and it's so lovely that people are taking ideas and using them. Honestly, it makes me so happy, and I'm so pleased that you notice as well and you let me know. Thank you. So it's so good that we're just sharing that love. Now I've just blotted that to almost get it dry. Now what we want to do is make it into our scroll. Now for me, the best way to do this is grab something like, I'm going to use a paintbrush. And I would just recommend rolling it. I find it easier to actually roll it round a paintbrush. Now again, I like mine to almost open. If you wanted, what you could do is put a piece of red liner tape on there, and as you roll it, and that would hold it there. Or at any point down here, if you wanted it to be solid, whereas, as I say, I like mine to almost spring back a little. You could pop a piece of tape there, and as you're rolling it, the tape will hold it. So I just want mine about that length. Now again, if I could cut it shorter, that bit is that's your choice depending how big you want it. Now I've taken the liberty of cutting my typewriter out because I didn't think you'd want to watch me cut. One thing I will say, when you're cutting this piece out here, for me, I find the easiest way is to just pop my scissors through and almost come in from the bottom and roughly cut the shape in the middle. And that then gives me space to go in properly and cut the edge like this. And I find it easy to do it from underneath and carefully cut round, and that's the way I would approach that. But you've probably got your own way of doing it. That's just a little tip if you should need it. Now what I have done on the nice keys here, I didn't want to add any sort of glitzer because I'm thinking this is a man's card I'm going for. But what I've done is got this lovely copper gel pen, and I've just added a little bit to where I think the highlights would be on the keys. And again, it just gives it that little bit of a finishing detail. So when we bring this back, how are we doing? So that's dried nicely. Look, the stars are there, the flicks. So we've got our typewriter and our scroll. So we need our little words, don't we? So let's get this, and we'll just cut our words out. So I hope you've been well since I last saw you or spent time with you. Now, to our lovely friends in Australia and New Zealand, I do believe that now you can have flights between the two. So it certainly sounds as though things are getting better for everybody. Certainly sounds like everything's getting a little bit easier. I know here in the UK, slowly, things are getting easier. I think we all have to still be very cautious, but it is nice that people can start to see friends and family again, which is very important. So let's must admit, my son, our eldest, younger son's just gone back to work. He works in hospitality, and he's just gone back to playing football. And he sent me a photo the other night. We'd actually gone to bed of a dislocated finger. He'd been playing football, and they x-rayed, and I used to be a radiographer, so he knew I'd enjoy seeing the x-ray. So he sent me an x-ray of his dislocated finger, bless him. So, but I did say to him, it's because he's not been playing sport. Unfortunately, injuries will happen. So he's now gone back to work, but he's got a nice dislocated finger. But it could have been worse, couldn't it? Anyway, so little embellishment we need now. So we've got all our bits here ready. And I've got a lovely little dish. This was given to me by my lovely friend Anne Redfern. And in it, I've got these tiny, a lot of us crafters are obsessed by stationery, and at one of my local stationery stores they sell these beautiful little, almost like miniature paper clips. So I have a little dish of those, and if you look on our finished card, I've used one to just put the word here. Now obviously I'm using the words in the boxes that come with this stamp set, but if you wanted to actually, you could stamp on here. So if this was a birthday card, wouldn't it look lovely with happy birthday stamped on there? Or what would be really nice if you wanted to handwrite something. I mean, I've got to be honest, my handwriting isn't the best, but it would be so nice if you wanted to send a message to somebody and you actually wrote the message on there. That would mean so much to them, wouldn't it? I think that would be lovely. So what we'll do first is let's put our paper clip, and again this is the trickiest part of the whole thing, is actually putting the paper clips. There we go. And I'm just going to put the word creative and just pop it under the paper clip. And I just want to put it at a jaunty angle. Now again, you can glue that down if you want. I'm just going to leave it like that. And then, as you know, I have a thing about opposite sides. So we'll add one to the bottom here. And I want to go about that far up. So we put one at this about that far up. That far. Yeah, that'll do. Do it by eye. I reckon that's about perfect. Now I'm using my favourite. You know I have a thing about the pin flare. So what I'm going to do is glue this down first. And I'm just going to bring it down a little bit further than where my typewriter is going to be. So I'm going to add some of my pin flare on the inside here. And then just going to add a little bit on here so that that will go on there and that will go there. And then I'm just going to shape my typewriter a little and pop some. Now again, you could use foam pads, glue dots, whatever is your choice. You know, we all have certain glues that we use. You know me by now, I'm just a pin flare. And I'm going to put that over there. And then my little words, options. This is where my tool comes in, just to put a little bit on there. And then the word box is actually at the top where you can't really see it. So I'm actually going to put this on this one up here. I just think it'd look good there. Just balancing everything out. Now again, pin flare, you have to squeeze. There we go. And I'm just going to lean across because I do need to just wipe my pokey tool, get the glue off. We need to be in good working practices, don't we? And that's it really. That's all I'm going to do today. But I think that's just such a lovely card. Again, we used a couple of brown ink pads, a stencil, a stamp set. And look, there's my topper and there's my original card. And as I say, there's so much you could do with this. I do love the idea of handwriting on there. I think that will be so special. And I think that's just such a lovely men's card, especially if you're looking for a man's card. And as I say, anybody going back to work at the minute who's maybe a little bit nervous about going back into the office, wouldn't it be lovely to make them a card and send it to them? So thank you for joining me today. Thank you to the new subscribers as well. It's lovely. And your comments. Oh, your comments are just amazing. It is funny. I read them and I run and I shout, oh, Carol, come and read this. It's lovely. So it does make my day. It really does. So thank you very much. I've got another video to do in a couple of days. So it won't be long. I'll see you in a couple of days and we can have another catch up. You take care, everybody. Much love and hugs. Bye for now.